All right. Hey, folks. Man, I'm shiny. That's what I get for having a haircut right before I went out of town and overhead lighting. Um, Good to see you guys. Wyn Miller and I are here at the PickTN conference in Franklin in a very fancy hotel. I am very out of my league at the moment, but if you got the email recently, we are doing a agroforestry class March 1st, Saturday, March 1st. And here in a second, I'm going to let her describe what to expect from that class, how it could serve you guys, and kind of what she does. So that's going to be, like I said, March 2nd on our farm in West Knox County. March 1st. My other thing's on the 2nd. I got a busy weekend coming up. Yes, March 1st. Bluebird Hill, that's our farm in West Knox County. After you hear this, if it sounds like your thing and you want to come out, just email me, strongrootsresources@gmail.com. There's no charge. We're going to do a lunch. We're going to learn. We're going to do a little bit of work. So when
have we set up a start time yet?
Oh, yes. I believe we're going from about 10 to 2.
Okay. Yeah. 10 to 2.
Yep.
Happy to talk to Carrie's friends and acquaintances. My name is Wyn Miller, like you said. And so Carrie's actually going to be the host of this tour, but it was kind of my idea. So I'll share with you some of the stuff that we have planned. So we'll, of course, be looking at Carrie's place. But before we do, we're going to kind of be looking at it from an agroforestry perspective. I work with Appalachian Sustainable Development. That's a nonprofit that's centered in southwestern Virginia. And we essentially support agricultural programs in rural counties throughout central Appalachia. And so I was hired to extend our agroforestry programming into Tennessee. So I will be there as kind of a technical resource for agroforestry and to share some information about 3 grants that are available for funding your new agroforestry projects right now. That includes materials and labor, as well as providing technical assistance. So those are really exciting. So we'll go over those. But the day's agenda, we're going to start out with a hands-on workday opportunity, and we'll be looking at 2 different types of silvopasture. And if you're not familiar with it, silvopasture is the use of trees combined with livestock, trees or shrubs combined with livestock, and it's becoming more and more popular as people are concerned about the kind of doing climate smart ag, but also it addresses cash flow issues as your animals have a shorter term ROI than your long-term, trees and stuff like that. So it's a way to have 2 different crops coming in with those returns arriving in different intervals. So there's 2 main approaches. One that most people in Tennessee are more familiar with is clearing the woods and then grazing your animals in it. The other approach is starting with pasture and adding trees. So we're going to be doing a small hands-on kind of work session using Carrie's place as a demo site to look at both of those types of silvopasture. So I'm really excited about that, getting out to being able to do some work and some hands-on activities with friends. Then we'll do lunch. And then we'll do, during lunch, I'll share more about those opportunities that I mentioned for funding and technical assistance for agroforestry projects, such as silvopasture. We're also funding windbreaks, riparian buffers, forest farming, and alley cropping. So kind of all the big 5 agroforestry practices in Tennessee. Those are open right now, and a wide range of eligibility. Really, if you're interested at all, even if you can't make it to the class, contact Carrie. He can put you in touch with us. Really hoping we can get some great projects in Tennessee this year. So we'll talk about that during lunch, and I'll try to provide a resource to the degree that I can. And then afterwards, Carrie will make himself available for showing more around his site and answering questions. And the 2 of us will try to send you home with lots of good knowledge and experience. So I'm really looking forward to it.
So one of the first questions I always get when I start to talk about agroforestry, people are like, why are we putting trees in pasture? They get in the way. So give us a 101 on why you're in favor of this method.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I grew up on a big cattle farm. And so the first thing that cattle farmers want to do is get rid of the trees so they can make hay. And I think it's important that if you're making hay, you don't want trees there. But we read Jim Garish's Kick the Hay Habit about 20 years ago, where we reduced our hay consumption from about 5 bales per animal per year to 1 bale per animal per year. And that was just with better pasture management. So once you're able to reduce your reliance on hay, that opens up your fields for growing trees or doing other types of management in them. And for us, we have kind of larger paddocks. I should have mentioned I work for ASD, but I'm also a family farmer as well. So we have kind of larger, maybe 10 acre or in some cases 14 acre fields that we'll subdivide, but they've only got, one watering trough in them. And then we're kind of subdividing those up to get a denser, more intensive intervals between those rotations. And during the summer though, and even during a lot of the year, we raise Angus cattle. They need shade or they prefer it, and the performance is better under shade. And that doesn't matter whether you're fattening steers, whether you've got pregnant cows, or whether they're lactating. All those performance indicators will go up when they've got adequate shade. So basically, we want them to be able to get to the shade and the water at any given time. So distributing that shade throughout the field allows us to basically dial that knob and increase the sophistication of our rotational grazing, such that we benefit the land better and increase our carrying capacity. So that was our main impetus for putting shade in cattle pastures, which is how I got my start in agroforestry. But there's other reasons too. There's models throughout the country. So one example would be we're here in Franklin, and Middle Tennessee's most established silvopasture is probably at Caney Fork, where they run sheep and chestnut trees. And so a reason for that would be that cash flow issue of, well, we wanted to grow chestnut trees, but we needed, number one, to maintain the ground underneath the chestnut trees to make it productive within a shorter turnaround time than the chestnut trees would have done, because obviously it takes a long time for a nut tree to produce. Same with timber trees, same with a lot of fruit trees. So you'll combine animals with trees in order to give you a quicker return than the tree would give you otherwise. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is for your legacy, or for the scenic beauty, or for the just enjoyment of having trees out there. There's also just timber focused operations. A lot of the areas down along the Gulf Coast and along the coast going up the East Coast, they will have cattle and pine plantations. And so those are really forestry first, but they're managing that forestry plantation with the cattle underneath them. And again, that's two different markets with really different dynamics. The loblolly pines are cutting on 30-year rotations, and the cattle, of course, they're selling those steers every year. So silvopasture can, you can do that for a variety of different regions. One other, there's a guy, I forget his name, but we could provide this there on the day of our event. Really interesting work up in, I think it's Michigan or Minnesota or something like that, real cold. But really enthusiastic, charismatic Mexican guy, I think, who is running chicken silvopasture. He's really passionate about chickens, and chickens are naturally jungle birds, and so he runs them underneath hazelnuts and elderberries, and that provides so many benefits. Your chickens are less stressed out. They've got great places to forage. That's predator protection, because they're underneath something where it's harder for those aerial predators to get them. And of course, you can also sell the elderberries and the hazelnuts if you design them to be harvestable and marketable. So there's so many different reasons for silvopasture, and I think each farm might have its own reason. But we'll discuss all that when we get together on the 1st.
Yeah, in the permaculture realm, we call that function stacking. We're just layering in uses within the same square footage. During the class, will you have a little bit of time to at least kind of explain some of the protective measures that you put in for the trees? Because that's kind of the next stopping, kind of hard stop a lot of people have is, how do I keep my animal? I got to graze this land. Yeah. But the animals are going to wreck these trees.
Yeah. Well, you will hate the answer that I give for that, because it depends.
It depends. Yep.
But it really does. And what I always say, so what we use with cattle right now is a 6-foot tall tube with poly wire wrapped around it and an energizer hooked up, so that every single tree has an electric wire wrapped around it. And it's very, very cost effective for what we're doing. And I say that really intentionally, cost effective. Yes, it's more expensive per tree, but it's the most effective way to grow that I've found to grow trees and reliably grow healthy, good trees in cattle pasture, and reduce your maintenance and reduce mortality. But for other applications, it might be different. So for some sheep flocks, you might be able to use the tube without the electrification. Most of the sheep farmers that I know that are using these methods up in Virginia are tending to, now that they've done it, kind of recommend having that energized wire along them, but it can be done without. There are other applications where, for some reason, maybe the electricity isn't an option, you might be using metal wire cages. Those have pros and cons. I personally am not a fan, but there's certainly some applications where they make sense. And then there's even some places where, you know, it's not too big of an area to just mow. And so you'll just fence it off and just mow around them. And that's absolutely fine too. It just really has to do with what your scenario is, how much risk you can afford, how much how much maintenance labor you can put into it. And so it's really not a one size fits all.
I've been able to have luck on the small scale with mine because the sheep are so well trained to the poly wire. I'll make a little triangle. I'll take 2 or 3 posts and then just wrap, and it's just dead poly wire. But they don't know, and they don't mess with it. Now that's not going to be effective for dozens or hundreds of trees, but the few that I've transplanted that I really didn't want them to get their mouths on, that does work. But I'll probably end up duplicating your tree tube at some point as we get there.
I think that's a good point. It's a learning experience for the animals too, is that once they learn to avoid those white tubes, that helps. And even if you've got some that aren't hooked up, they'll tend to avoid it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Anything else you want to relay before we close it up here?
I'm hoping a lot of people come to this work day because I have been stir crazy and I'm looking to like make new friends and have a lot of fun. And I love working outside. I get really excited. Just working outside with friends and stuff, hoping to bring all extra tools and just chill out with a lot of cool plants and people. So yeah, I hope to see you guys there.
Cool. All right. Thanks for your time, guys. Holler at me. March 1st. Saturday, March 1st. We got 3 people signed up already. Email just went out last night. So
yeah,
we'll see you guys there.
See you there.